Mainland 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial. 98.3 FM. Don't touch the dial.
Welcome to Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. It is such a pleasure to be here this morning. Let's have a conversation as regards the major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. My name is Omobola Sandra. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. We have our papers here with us, The Punch, The Nation, Vanguard, and This Day newspaper in a particular order. Of course, we'll be looking through the stories up until 8:30. We'll take a break, and then by 8:40 we'll come back onto Milan Focus, where you, our dear listener, gets to be a part of the conversation. And let's get straight into it. But before then, this is sending a special shout out to Inaya Aladev Sahid Fuhad. I always get that mixed up. But happy birthday, happy 5th birthday to Inaya. We wish you so many great things to come. May you continually be a source of joy to your parents. This is just wishing you so much love from Milan 98.3 FM. Happy 5th birthday. And just a very interesting trivia. Inaya is the sister to Imran that we celebrated last week. So September is an amazing month, an interesting month for Said Fuhad. A lot of spending. I do not envy him, but I'm sure he's up to the task. But happy birthday, Inaya. Wishing you all the best. Now, let's move on to trends in the papers. We have Sahid Fuhad who will be joining in via the phone line to give analysis to the stories that we are going to be treating this morning. Okay? But before then, hello, Fuad. Okay. Whilst we try to connect with Fuhad. Okay. Hello, Fuad.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you very much. Good morning. Yes, so let's get on with it. I will start with the Punch newspaper. The major headline there says Dangote refinery imports crude as NNPCL swaps oil for loans. And there are writers to that says Dangote expects crude from NNPCL November, begins operations October, and then we have $3 billion crude for loan deal. Others put pressure on local supply. So there's a lot to take away from this particular headline, Fuhad. There's a lot to take There's a lot to take away from it. First is the fact that Dangote refinery is importing crude. Then we also have the conversation as regards NNPCL swapping oil for loan, and we have a contract or an agreement here that NNPCL would, because NNPCL is, took loan and then they'll be paying the loan back with crude. Okay. And then we also have the fact that Dangote will begin operations in October. There's also, so many other stories. There's so many reports to pick away from this headline. So which one?
A lot.
Yes. Okay.
Well, I really don't even know where to start. There's a lot that we need. There's a lot that we need to talk about. But I think the first thing is to acknowledge the fact that the information emerged yesterday. One of the directors of Dangote Refinery, while speaking to a particular foreign platform, foreign medium, had announced that Dangote Refinery will start operations in October, and that in itself should be a good news. Ordinarily, eventually the much-awaited Dangote Refinery is going to start operations in October. But the other side is the fact that it will be importing crude. So it now means that we're back to square one, because what it now means is that it is now still going to be calculated using all of the foreign peculiarities that we have always talked about. It's importing crude at what price? It means it's going to buy the crude at international market. It would have to factor in all of the costs. There's also the issue of forex that will come into it. How is it going to be able to access its forex to be able to buy the crude at what rate? I'm sure that this era of floating the dollar means that there won't be special forex for him to go get that crude. Probably has to go in there and mop up whatever is not even available here in the country to buy crude. You understand? So that put pressure again on forex locally. The cash forex that we're already talking about. Sandra, a dollar is not at the open market now, it's about $9.17 to a dollar.
Yeah. So
that's one implication of that. So it automatically means that, look, until there's enough supply locally in terms of crude to that refinery, we may not be looking at any price adjustment. In fact, if international price of food goes up internationally, his own products, the prices of his products would also go up. That's one part of it. The other part is that, look, we already went into a $3 billion deal with our Exim Bank. And the idea is that, look, we are getting the money to repay with crude. So that also puts pressure on our local production. Unfortunately, Sandra, we are not even doing enough. We are not meeting our quota, the OPEC quota. The OPEC quota is about 1.8 million barrels per day. Already we are doing about 1.1 million barrels per day, to 1.2 million barrels per day. So the entire Dangote refinery capacity is about 650,000 barrels per day. So if you are not even meeting up 1.8 standard, where are you going to have enough crude to deduct 650,000 barrels to give to Dangote refinery? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because if your entire daily production is about 1.1 million barrels per day, and Dangote refinery has a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day, although it's starting with, I think, 350,000 barrels or so per day for now, but even if it's 350, 650, whichever one, we are not doing enough. So where do we get enough crude to supply Dangote refinery? And if it continues to import, then that's a problem. You understand? Now, let us go back to our own refinery. And that's what we have been talking about, Sandra. About the reason for having local refineries. Our entire 4 refineries in the country, the ones built by government, has a total capacity of 445,000 barrels refining capacity per day, 445,000 barrels. Again, the thinking of our leaders who built those refineries was that, look, whatever crude we are producing locally will be taken off from the international quota. So, for example, if the quota OPEC gives to us is 1.8 million barrels per day, we do that for the international market. When we are able to extract that, that is what we supply to the international market. And at that, we are looking at dollars, foreign exchange rate, and all of that. But for our 4 local refineries, we are now supposed to now do extra 445,000 barrels per day to supply to our local refineries. At that level, there's nothing dollarized. We are not looking at any international peculiarities because the product belongs to us. We are not a country that built a refinery that does not have crude oil. We are part of OPEC because we have crude oil. So if you build refineries, apart from the one you give to the international community on OPEC quota basis, you are supposed to now produce what you now supply to your local refinery, nairanize it, if you permit me to use that word. You put it under the naira peculiarity, your own local peculiarity. All you need to do is just ensure that, look, you are pricing your product to be able to continue to run your refinery, maintain them, and ensure that there's enough for local supply and local consumption. At that point, whatever happens at the international market does not really concern you. It's not about profit, it's about service to the people. Like I said, what you just do in your pricing is to ensure that you make enough money to continue to, run the refineries, maintain them, pay salaries, or probably even expand your production capacity. But that's not what we are doing now. The 4 refineries are not working. Now Dangote has announced that it's starting in October. It's going to start with diesel and aviation fuel in October. It says by November it should be able to do PMS. But look at the announcement. You will be importing crude oil. Hoping that in November crude will be supplied by the NNPC. NNPC that has a crude oil swap deal that has already collected money in advance. We are not even producing enough crude to meet our international quota. And if you are not able to meet your quota, you can't fight for an increment in quota. So if you look at every other thing, it's still long days before we get out of this current debacle of problem in the oil sector. And as it is, I think the picture we are getting is that Dangote refinery will not ultimately solve our problem until we are able to really, really open up the market, build more refineries, maybe through some private partnership models, build more modular refineries, sell or concession our old refineries for us to ensure proper, supply as far as local consumption is concerned. So it's not anything to celebrate here, Sandra. There's a lot of gloom over this announcement.
Moving away from that particular announcement now, let's go on to this loan that we are talking about. This loan from NNPCL committing crude oil to another entity for a swap of some funds in order to be able to carry out their functions. Is this loan risky for NNPCL or the Nigerian refinery? Because this is some sort of exposure now. And how is this swap deal different from the previous swap deals that we have been having?
Well, the initial swap deal was that we drift crude out to get PMS and other products. That was the initial swap deal. We crude for oil. So what you do is that the initial swap deal was you take crude out and then they give you refined products, PMS, diesel, aviation fuel, and the rest. But now what we did with this was to get forex, $3 billion in exchange, in advance. We have not even given them the crude though. It's like chopping basin, and you are now paying back. But you are not paying back with money. You are paying back with crude. And the idea of getting that $3 billion was to help with the shortfall of supply in the local market as far as forex is concerned. So that's the difference. The initial one was that we give crude out, we take PMS and other refined products. Now we are taking crude out now, to get dollars. But again, all of this problem is coming from the fact that we don't have functional refineries. It's just reckless, Sandra. It's unimaginable. It doesn't even make any common sense, really. For us to say we are an oil-producing nation and we can't have functional refineries. Unfortunately, we keep telling people, Sandra, that look, Dangote is going to run his business like any other private business entity. It's not commissioned, it's not compelled, it's not restricted to supply the local market. It's a private business that will be focused majorly on profit making. The only compulsion we have with Dangote refinery is our 20% stake. And if you ask yourself, what is a 20% stake in a 650,000 barrels refinery? Doesn't even succeed. I'm sure that whatever we have at stake cannot even take care of the needs of the Southwest. You understand what I'm saying? If we are all going to rely on Dangote refinery. So it's all still a bit tacky. It's all still a bit shrouded in a lot of uncertainty. The reality from common knowledge, without you trying to even model up all of these old things, is that look, Dangote refinery will not ultimately solve our problem. Would it reduce it? We are not even sure now if it's going to be relying on importation, to get supply of crude to his refinery. It's still a lot of gloom again on this announcement, Sandra.
Well, thank you very much for that. There's a lot to take away. Just as we mentioned earlier, we have here an official of NNPCL, the ED, the executive director rather of Dangote Refinery, Edwin Devakumar, said that NNPCL would supply some crude at knockdown prices due to its equity stake in the refinery. So there's still
20%, yeah.
Which is 20%. Also, he stated further that aside from Angola, all right, they're also looking at Dangote processing most African crude grades, as well as Middle Eastern Arab light and even US light tight oil. So it's just, I don't know what to make of this, but just as you've already, properly highlighted the fact that at the end of the day, Dangote refinery is a business entity out to just make some profit. Well, now looking at reactions from marketers, the National Secretary of IPMAN, that's Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, Chief John Kekeocha, said the Dangote refinery should start producing refined products as long as the delay was becoming too long. He, however, expressed hope that once the facility starts getting crude from NNPCL to produce diesel and jet fuel, the cost of commodities would reduce in Nigeria. That's the reaction of IPMAN, Fuad.
Well, again, we'll have to wait to, again, like I said, from the executive director who spoke with that outlet, that media outlet. What he said is that in October, they will first start with the production of diesel and jet A1, which is aviation fuel. And then hopefully in November, when they begin to get enough supply, or some supply. Again, this is the word, operative word here for some. So we don't actually have the figure. But like I'm saying, if you're looking at the fact that NNPC is still struggling with crude oil, NNPC or Nigeria is still struggling to meet its OPEC quota, and we already have an oil swap deal to get dollars, we may not be able to adequately supply the Dangote refinery. So it means that as we are supplying with the amount that we can, Dangote may still have to rely on importation of crude oil, to be able to meet up its own daily capacity to refine. That's about 650,000 barrels per day. So in all, we still see a situation where the issue of forex will still come in, international market prices will still come in, and we may not see a situation where prices are going to go down. We may even be seeing a situation where the story of market forces will still come in. We'll be running away from these market forces, but again, the Dangote refinery, I'm sure the conversation around market forces will still be there. And if that still remains, then we are in an era where we are still going to be having situations where prices will be going up as a result of quote and unquote some market forces.
Thank you very much. Just on the final note, Edwin also went ahead to state that the Dangote would also that the importation of crude by Dangote refinery is temporary, and that by November they will be receiving supply directly from NNPCL. But whether or not it will be available, since NNPCL now has to pay off loans with crude, is another conversation entirely.
You know what, Sandra?
Yes.
The question is this.
Yeah.
In November, will NNPC have the capacity to supply Dangote refinery the amount of food it needs?
Exactly.
That's the big question.
That's the big question.
Considering oil theft that we are still battling with, considering that we are not even producing enough to meet our OPEC quota, considering that we are also doing a manner of swap deals that requires that we have to continue to supply crude, to fulfill our own part of the bargain. Those are the questions around whether Dangote will be able to get enough. And if he now gets enough, is he going to be compelled to focus on the local market, or is he going to be looking at profit? At what price, again, would he be buying from the NNPC? Again, the stake is 20%. So apart from 20% stake, for the other part of the supply, would it be buying at reduced prices? What would be the arrangement, really? A lot that we still have to unravel and see when all these operations start.
Thank you very much. More details of that story on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. So many things to take away from this one. Dangote refinery imports crude as NNPCL swaps oil for loans. However, the writer said Dangote expects crude from NNPCL from November, and they are to begin operations in October. But then there's also a catch to the fact that NNPCL is on a crude for loan deal with Africa Import and Export Bank. All right.
And we may even go into more of those kinds of deals going forward, because we need those.
Exactly, which would, in one way or the other, put a lot of pressure on local supply. So whether or not NNPCL will be able to meet up the demands of Dangote refinery and also the loan swap deal and also other swap deals, we'll get to know by November.
Swap,
everywhere. All right, so more details on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. Let's move on now. We also have here, youth protest Mohbad's death, demand justice. And that is on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. I think the official date for the candlelight is tomorrow, but then in Ogun
That's in Lagos.
That's in Lagos. But in Ogun State, I think some things are already started to happen. Yes, on yesterday in Abeokuta, to be precise, the Ogun State capital, there were some disruptions as hundreds of youth filed out to protest and demand justice over Mohbad's sudden death. Well, there's a whole lot for us to take away from Mohbad's story, because now there have been a lot of allegations, a lot of revelations, a lot of, it's almost like a Pandora's box, has been opened at this in this situation.
Well, there's a lot, honestly. There's a lot around how that young man lost his life. And I think we have to be careful again. When it comes to social media, I'm a bit careful, honestly. I take everything I say on social media because on social media there's a lot of misrepresentation of facts. There's a lot of disinformation, and so one has to be careful to take everything you see on social media hook, line, and sinker. You have to be very, very careful. But the fact is that this young man died from very questionable circumstances. Leading to his death, there have been revelations as to the fact that, look, he was not really in good terms with the record label he signed into. That's the Malian record. We've seen videos of him being bullied. We've seen videos of him being harassed. Those are facts that nobody can deny. And the personalities involved would have to be held accountable, really. Because again, there are two things that we have to unravel on this Mohbad case: the remote causes of the death and the immediate causes of the death. The remote causes will be the things that led to him dying, while the immediate cause will be what happened on that day that he died. So those are two issues that I think investigators will be looking at. They said he was admitted into a hospital for ear infection. He was administered a particular injection. Which hospital was that? Who treated him? Who were the friends around him? What were the issues leading to that particular day before he was admitted? And then there are issues also around the record label. Was it depressed? Had he been harassed before? Look, people can be held accountable. People can be held accountable for what you've done in the past. So if really there are facts to the fact that he was initially harassed, beaten, assaulted, yes, those people should be held accountable, because it could lead to depression that could ultimately take his life. So there's a lot that we have to unravel, really. And it should serve as a form of deterrence. I also think people should also learn lessons from this. We're in an era where every misbehavior can boomerang suddenly, can become a thing that the public will take up with you. Look at the energy the youth are putting into this. The protest in Abeokuta unfortunately also became violent, which I think we need to address too, because at the end of the day yesterday we heard that people were now fighting, the youth were fighting, and all of that. But look at the energy. The desire for people to get justice for this young man means that, look, in every capacity, any capacity you find yourself, be very, very careful. Do good, be properly behaved, because look, the social media does not forget. I know we are in an era where our youth are very good at recording things. Everything they are recording. And when they record things, Sandra, that thing is well documented. It doesn't go away. We see situations where Mohbad, before his death, had said that they were taking his phone. I'm sure when they took his phone, then they thought they were deleting evidence or information that can indict them. But I was told by a young person that, look, sometimes when you record with this smartphone, it automatically stores in cloud.
In your cloud, yeah.
So when you record, it stores not on the phone again, it stores somewhere else. So we're in an era of new technology, and I think people should be careful.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Fuhad. Well, the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, 𝗵𝗪 Hamzat, was at Mohbad's residence yesterday to pay a condolence visit on behalf of the Lagos State government. And then we also have, in addition to the police special investigative team in Lagos to probe the death of Mohbad, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu has invited the DSS to join the investigation and widen the dragnet with interagency collaboration and use of best-in-class technology to unearth the truth. There's a whole lot to still come from this particular. I don't think we've heard the last of it, but then there's still a whole lot to come. There's still a lot of revelations that we're expecting. So many other people are speaking up. Former, signees under that record label, signees in other record labels. Yes,
I saw a particular DJ. I think when he was signed to the Malian Records, he looked very healthy, but the pictures we are seeing now are very disturbing of the young man. The allegations as to drug abuse, how some of them were, psychologically harassed. A lot that is coming out, Sandra. A lot that should get anybody worried about the dark world in our music industry. There seems to be some darkness around that industry that this Mohbad death has now brought to limelight. And we need to dig into it, because again, we need to protect the creative industry. We need to protect the creative industry. It's very, very important.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Fad. More details on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. Let's move on now. We also have here, government plans renovation as miscreants vandalize Lagos pedestrian bridges. What is going on? People are vandalizing rail tracks and now it's bridge.
We said government needs to pay attention to this thing.
Okay.
Vandalism would not just happen overnight, Sandra. It's not as people will vandalize. The thing is that even the pedestrian bridges are not even safe to use. You have miscreants, you have all manner of people, on those pedestrian bridges harassing pedestrians. You understand what I'm saying? So it starts with that. When the pedestrian bridges are not safe to you, people abandon them and just cross the road. So it makes it vulnerable, it makes it open for people to now vandalize it. And we talked about it, I think, about a month ago. The fact that Lagosians are complaining that most of the pedestrian bridges are not safe to you. You have miscreants, you have a manner of funny characters hanging and loitering around those pedestrian bridges to harass and even steal from people. So what you now find is that people even abandon those bridges and cross the road. So of course I'm opening it up for vandalism. I'm not surprised that this is happening. We now use public funds to go and repair it again.
Well, according to what we have here in this report is that aside from vandalization, the pedestrian bridge is wearing out because of lack of utilization, and miscreants are intentionally removing these materials because the people are not using these bridges. So which leads now to what you just said as regards the fact that it's not even safe for so what exactly should be the first foot forward for the government? Should it be ensuring that our bridges are safe for use, put lights on these bridges so that people can use these bridges at night, even put lights there, put some sort of cameras or so? I don't know. What do you think? Because if they repair this bridge and then these miscreants come back and nobody's still using it, what's the point? It's almost like we're wasting money. So what exactly is the way forward?
I think the first thing is to ensure that people are safe to use those pedestrian bridges. And like you just highlighted, lift them up. Most of the bridges don't even have lights. So at night they are dark. During the daytime, you see that people are afraid to use them because of the funny characters, that loiter around those bridges, if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. So the first thing is to ensure that you restore the people's confidence to be able to use those bridges again. Make it safe for them. Let people be, because what you find is that a lot of people don't use it, they just cross the road. So how to secure the bridges would have to be the job of government. Maybe they have, that's why I think we should have this neighborhood watch. I think the neighborhood watch call was created to ensure things like this. Public utilities like this are safe for people to use. So why not deploy a neighborhood watch officers to those pedestrian bridges, make sure they are stationed there, ensure that no miscreants or, funny characters hang around them, and then you can repair and ensure that people use them. And then, of course, maybe put some penalty on people crossing the road. But fix the pedestrian bridges first before you do that.
Thank you very much. More details on page 5 of the Punch newspaper. Let's keep moving now. We also there are so many stories on the front page of the Punch. Of course, we can't take them all, but we also have here the fact that just above the masthead, Niger crisis will put pressure on Nigerian food market, and that is on that's coming from World Bank, and that story is on page 29. So just very, very quickly, let's see what this report has to say. The coup d'etat in Niger may put additional pressure on Nigeria and other West African nations' food markets. And according to the Global Bank, the Nigerian coup d'etat puts an additional 7 million people at risk of falling into severe food insecurity in the region, against a backdrop of soaring commodity and staple food prices and severe food insecurity that's already affecting about 3.3 million people during the lean season. So a lot of implication of the economic and financial sanctions that ECOWAS has placed on Niger. That's where this report is coming from.
Well, again, for people who are from that axis, they will tell you that Niger Republic is one country with a lot of implications for Nigeria in terms of food supply. That's a country that has about 7 states in Nigeria sharing borders with it. And so one would understand, the kind of trade relationship we have with Niger Republic. People who are very, for Katsina State, for example, in Sokoto and some other states that share borders with Niger, they will tell you that, look, for example, the supply of onion to Nigeria comes from Niger. A lot of our supplies in terms of onion and some other, products like that come from Niger Republic. So again, you have a situation where our borders are shut to them now. Trade is being disrupted. In fact, some people who are supposed to even move goods into Niger have their trailers and what have you stuck at the border. Honestly, maybe I don't know where we're going to have that understanding with the junta, to the extent that maybe there can be some form of middle ground to allow for, so while we are still negotiating, putting pressure on the military junta to hand over power, we can have a situation where we relax this blockade so that people can do their trade, easily, while we are still negotiating and finding a way to resolve the crisis in Niger. But I think ultimately the government would have to look at the possibility of opening up those borders and relaxing the blockade so that people can begin to live their normal lives again, do their businesses, and ensure that we don't have a food crisis resulting from that situation.
Thank you very much. More details on page 29 of the Punch. Moving on now, we also have Tinubu's victory. Atiku Obi filed 86 ground appeals at Supreme Court. That story is on page 2. It's quite a lengthy read. You can get all of the details there. Of course, I think this was expected for us. We had the conversation that, they still have a final stop, which is, of course, the
Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court now. So barely 2 weeks after the PPT affirmed the victory of President Bola Tinubu, the candidates of the People's Democratic Party and Labour Party, that is Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, respectively, have filed 86 grounds of appeal at the Supreme Court to nullify that particular judgment. And the two candidates in separate appeals filed asked the Apex Court to set aside that ruling and nullify Tinubu's election, describing the verdict as erroneous. Okay, and we can get okay. You want to
this is a final bus stop. If you permit me to use that word, that's the Apex Court in the land. So the petitions have now been filed. The appeals, have now been filed. The ground of appeal are not completely different from the way it was filed at the appellate court. The same story of rigging, voter suppression, manipulation of results, the 25% in Abuja, and all of those things are still part of the petitions filed at the Supreme Court. 5 justices of the appeal court had rules. Now we're going to have 7 justices. So the number, we have 2 additional justices that will be sitting on this particular case at the Supreme Court. The Peter Obi petition has been filed. I don't think the APM is interested in going to the Supreme Court. Maybe they are tired.
We've not heard anything from the APM.
Yes. But the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, the PDP, Atiku, have gone to the Apex Court, the Supreme Court. So we have 60 days now, 60 days for us to get a ruling from the Supreme Court. But like we always say, this is the right thing to do. This is what democracy requires. You are not happy about an election, you can approach the court to seek redress. And this is a good one. We must commend the 2 presidential candidates for being very civil and following the rule of law. So we just have to wait to see what the ruling will be from the Supreme Court.
All right, thank you very much. More details of that on page 2. It's a very long read. You can get all of their prayers and their appeals and what they are pushing forward to the Supreme Court on page 2 of the Punch. Let's move on now. We also have here, finally, from the Punch newspaper, dollar shortage. Foreign airlines trap funds hit $783 million. Wow, that's a lot. As our last year, we were just talking about 300.
425. No, I think $425 million.
420. Yes. Well, now it's now 783. And Fuad, what's uninteresting about this is the fact that the more the exchange rate is, or the more the naira falls, the higher these funds go.
Yes, definitely. It has its own effect. Apart from the fact that we still have issues with remittances to these foreign airlines.
Right.
So we are not completely remitting to them. That's one part of it. The other part is that as our Naira continues to misbehave against the dollar, the value of what we are owing these foreign airlines continues to go up. So I think we need to quickly sort ourselves out, Sandra. Very, very important that we need to find a way to quickly sort ourselves out. The president has gone to the UAE to assure there are 2 airlines, that's Etihad and Emirates, that look, he was going to do something immediately to ensure that their monies are remitted to them. That was the major reason why those airlines pulled out of Nigeria and even banned some of our people from getting visas. Because again, it's about being accountable. It's about fulfilling your own part of the deal. The IATA charter says that even if you sell a ticket for When you are going to pay to them, you have to pay in dollars. That's the arrangement internationally. And so if smaller countries like Ghana, Ethiopia, Rwanda are able to remit to these airlines without any glitch, why is Nigeria? Why is it the problem with Nigeria? You know, to enter into a business deal with people and do what you are supposed to do. What is happening? Why are we doing this? And here you have our president going around the world calling for foreign direct investment. They are going to be reading stories like this. You understand what I'm saying? That, oh, the people that have been doing business with you, how have you been treating them? They do business, they can't get their money.
Okay.
So we need to sort it out, because again, this money will continue to go up, and that's a huge one hanging on the neck of the country.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Fuad. You know, I was going to go there. I just didn't want to sound like a pessimist, because I was wondering if we are asking for, if we're bringing so much attention to, you know,
Foreign direct investment.
exactly, and then we have foreign airlines struggling to have their funds. We have some multinational companies packing up and leaving the country, you know, and then, you know, we're out there saying, oh, come. And what exactly have you done with the people that have?
Well, they are not coming here to do charity. They are not NGOs. These are business ventures who are here for, you know, to make profit and grow their business.
Well, that story is on page 26 of the Punch newspaper. This is Mainland 98.3 FM. You're listening to Trends in the Papers. All right. Don't forget that we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you very much to Francis F. Yaji. He dropped a comment during the conversation so far. We appreciate everyone who is a part of the show via Facebook and YouTube. Now, let's move on to the Nation newspaper. We have here the major headline: Tinubu at UNGA. Nigeria volumes. Apologies. Nigeria welcomes true partnership. Oh, we just talked about that. Here we are. All right. So, the president addresses world leaders at UNGA. He gave Nigeria's statements to world leaders at yesterday's at the ongoing 78th United Nations General Assembly in New York, United States. And the major focus there, in all he said, the major thing that we took out of that is, you know, signposting of the readiness of Nigeria and other African nations to welcome genuine foreign partners. Now, Fuad, if we're going to properly dissect the president's speech at the United Nations Assembly,
General Assembly.
Yes, at the General Assembly. Do you think, one way or the other, that maybe we should take some speck out of our own eyes before inviting logs? Does that even make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that with all of the, you know, issues that we're battling, you know, on the on the home front, going onto the global stage and bringing attention, is this the right time for such attention?
Well, as the largest economy in Africa, Sandra, we can't be missing in events like that. Every opportunity for our president to put the country out there for investment opportunities. I think he has to take advantage of every opportunity. You know, so it was a fantastic outing again for Mr. President, I must say. I decided to listen to that speech. About 18 minutes, yes. Fantastically well delivered. The fact that Nigeria and Africa generally are now well positioned, you know, to accept genuine investors. No, what he said was that, look, the era of, you know, these foreign investors seeing Africa or Nigeria as a place for scavenging has gone. We should be seen as partners in progress. The opportunities are there, whether anybody likes it or not. The most populous black nation in the world is a fertile ground, Sandra, for businesses. The largest economy in Africa is a fertile ground for businesses. Investors will listen to any president of such a country. They want to come here. But again, what are our own local issues? How well are we dealing with our own local issues? You know, that else businesses come here to thrive. That's what we're saying. Are we trying to solve our own internal problems? How well are we dealing with those problems? To ensure that when investors are bringing their money, you know, they have that confidence that, look, their businesses will thrive, they are able to remit their money, they are able to even to repatriate their funds. Because most of these businesses also want to repatriate their funds. You understand what I'm saying? So, insecurity, for example, policy somersault, corruption is also part of the things we need to look at. A whole lot of things really that I think we need to sit back home and resolve. Like I said, most of of these investors will read the stories of how foreign airlines have not been able to repatriate their funds, and they look at themselves and say, oh, should I go into such a country or go into a smaller country where I don't put too much money, but I'm sure that, look, my businesses will be safe. You can be big for nothing, Osanda, God forbid, for Nigeria. We are big, but are we really big in a way that people come here and feel very comfortable to run business here?
Thank you very much. Well, highlights of the address: the president sought debt relief, investment in critical industries, and access for African exports. Also, corrupt fuel subsidy, bad forex removed for economic growth. Yes, he said something as regards the removal of fuel subsidy and why Nigerians are currently going through the hardship that they are going through, or that we are going through. Sorry about that. Resurgence of military coup and bad governance wrong. Also, foreign countries, firms should stop looting Africa's riches. And finally, Africa, not a problem, but key to world's future. Those were the highlights of the president's address. See the full speech. It's on page 3 of the Nation newspaper, so you can get all of the details that you need. We're moving on now. National grid collapses second time in 1 week.
Well,
I would not say anything past that. Just leave that.
No, I told you the story of Abiku.
See,
I'll recommend 2 poems for you to go and read.
Fuad, I don't think Abiku will go and come 100 times. I doubt it. I doubt and Abiku will be going and be coming and going and be coming.
Are you sure? Okay, let me recommend 2 poems for you to go and read about Abiku. There's Abiku written by Wole Soyinka. And there's also an Abiku, a poem written by J.P. Clark. Just look for those 2 poems and read. You'll enjoy it.
I wish I didn't read these poems for Jam or for WAEC.
I don't know. If you have not read it, just go and read the 2 poems. The one by Wole Soyinka and the one by J.P. Clark.
Maybe we should write our own now, but with the national grid in context. Yes, with the national grid in context. It's not funny, but it's the story on page 8. Our national grid has collapsed for the second time in 1 week. That is the reality of our power situation in this country, and we are asking for FDIs. It's a very wonderful week for Nigeria this time. I think we'll just move on from that story. More details on page 8 of the Nation.
And the foreign investors will be reading the story. They read the local news. They follow your local news.
It's on the front page.
They do their own research. And so what they say is, oh, I'm going to a country where the national grid keeps collapsing 100 times in how many years?
No, what
is their
stop?
What is their power supply capacity?
They are listening.
They are 4,000 megawatts.
It's okay. It's okay. For what they are listening to you. It's okay.
All right. Okay. Let me keep quiet. Let's not shout.
Let's not shout, please.
Lower your voice. Lower your voice.
Off your mic. It's all right. All right. But the story is on page 8. For those of us who like, I don't know what else we need to know as regards this. Is going to be promises, that we are going to fix it. But then it's on page 8. And we also have here, just above the Nation masthead, TUC and NLC differ on modalities for
fighting
strike. Yes.
They are fighting.
Really, they are not fighting. They are disagreeing. It's so what?
I listen to them. That's a fight. There's a serious. I don't know where that is coming from. The 2 bodies. Okay, all right. Have your story.
So the Trade Union Congress yesterday stressed the importance of the federal government hastening action on post-subsidy removal palliatives for workers. The Congress said workers are getting more impatient due to hardship occasioned by petrol subsidy removal. Okay. However, we have the NLC also in one way or the other having their own 2-day warning strike indefinite strike that has also been pushed forward. So the division between the labor unions over the planned indefinite strike has become an interesting one. It was on live television yesterday. The disagreements was majorly triggered by NLC President Joe Ajaero that the TUC could not back out of a strike without giving notice. So are they going to go into strike together, or is TUC, maybe TUC doesn't want to strike? Fuad, remember the last warning strike they had, TUC was not, active, yes, in that one. So do you think with this disagreement, do you think that they'll be able to get anything substantial from the federal government as regards their negotiations?
If these 2 labor unions don't work together and cooperate to put a common front against the government, they will achieve nothing, really. And my innermost mind tells me that there's already a plan to divide the two of them. I listened to the two presidents yesterday, the NLC President Jᴏɪṛ and Alexis Sifo, the guy at the TUC. Number one, there seems to be a battle of supremacy amongst them, which is the most important organized labor union in the country. That was the conversation I was hearing yesterday. The NLC was positioning itself as the most important labor union in the country, while the TUC was also trying to show that, look, they may not be as large as the NLC, but their members are so strategic to ensuring the success of any strike, industrial action. You understand what I'm saying? For example, Osifo saying that Fᴜဃᴜ is part of the TUC, and that, look, Fᴜဃᴜ alone, if they shut down petroleum supply across the country, that will shut down the economy. He talked about senior civil servants, some of their members saying that, look, they are even more, it's not about the numbers now, but how strategic their members are to the success of any industrial action in the country. But what I will appeal to them, because they talked about the fact that, look, the initial feeding money side by the NLC, the TUC was not well informed or carried along, and that there was no agreement with it, was just the NLC doing their thing. But what I'm saying is that if really these guys are interested in the welfare of their members, and indeed the welfare of Nigerians generally from these subsidy negotiations with government, I think they need to share their sword, drop their ego, and work together. You know, I said it the last time, this is not President Muhammadu Buhari. It's a different kettle of fish. The Tinubu administration is not the same as the Buhari administration in terms of intellect, tact, understanding of issues, the ability to twist them. They must know that they are dealing with this is a different set of leadership they are dealing with. And I think they need to put on their thinking cap and work together if they are going to achieve anything meaningful from this negotiation.
Well, so many things to take out of this story, but you can get all of the details on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. We also have here, very quickly now, running through the other stories. Obaseki Shaibu exchange brickbats over lockout. There's a very embarrassing video that's trending on how the deputy governor couldn't get into his office. He was locked out. That's Edo State deputy governor, by the way. So the story is on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. We also have here, silence, not cowardice, or your monarchs tell of Obasanjo.
After they stood up. After they stood up.
It's giving you your Tekuyo, that's
you're the man has embarrassed them, he has left. Stand up, sit down. What more? What more?
They needed the exercise. They needed the exercise.
If anybody does that to my Oba, no go grill.
Well, even we that we own the Oba self, we have not seen him in how many years. God knows. God knows if he would even.
Well, it's unfortunate, very, very embarrassing.
For that.
I'm sure the Obas will get to their different palaces and what happened? Don't look before
All right, Fuad. Well,
oh dear, you know Obas are supposed to be prepared, always on guard. They didn't go there with enough,
I think it wasn't more of, Boya did not dira or not. I think it was just more of who it was. This is only. No,
if they dira, no matter who the person is, even if it's, look, our traditional leaders are supposed to be the custodian of our culture and tradition. They are deities. They are representatives of the God on earth. So who is the Ebola to tackle the gods? The gods are even mightier than any Ebola. What are you saying? They didn't go there with enough, or maybe there's nothing, they don't have anything. You don't understand.
Well, I just want to be safe inside the studio here. I really don't know who the Ebola is or who did what they're supposed to use the Dira. But I have just few seconds left on the show. Right. So Vanguard newspaper's major headline, presidential poll, FCT can't be 37th state. Atiku and Obi tell Supreme Court, says 25% in FCT mandatory, and asks Supreme Court to nullify Tinubu's victory. I think we've taken that. The story is on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. We also have address corruption to build your economy. The United States tells Nigeria. That's embarrassing, but well, it's a good one. Stories on page.
So somebody tells you the truth now, he says it's embarrassing. You see the problem?
No, no, no.
Can you see?
You know when you go out
What's
there
embarrassing about it?
and you are begging for something, and then they tell you go and do something.
And they will tell you the truth now. So what's embarrassing about it? You take it for what it is and then work on it. I don't think there's any. They tell you to go and fight corruption. Are you not supposed to go and fight corruption?
What? It's not good though. It's not good.
Okay. They should lie to you and say, everyone is well with you. Oh, don't worry, everything is fine.
It's the bluntness of it.
Okay.
Go and fight corruption first before you come and talk to us about coming to me. Well, that's all we can take for this morning on Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. Please stay with us. We'll take a short break now. When we come back by 8:40, we'll move on to Mainland Focus, where we'll pick 2 or more major trending stories, and you get to be part of the conversation. So please stay tuned.